start here, first of all, you know, families are being bombarded with headlines about the rising costs of college, how unaffordable it is, the student debt problem. And what I wondered is what are some of the misperceptions that families might have about college costs or affordability and about saving for college? What have you run across?
So I think parents see the sticker price on college and assume that's what they're going to have to pay. And as we both know, that's not what most people pay. Most people access some form of financial aid. Some of it they repay, some of it they don't have to repay. Um, the the price of college is unfortunately not as transparent as the price of cars, and so um, it's important to understand that you need to look at you need to do enough research to understand what it is likely to cost you based on your own personal fi family finances. Um, I think another misperception is that, and I don't know if it's a misperception, but I do think it's where families get it wrong.
Mhm.
They they don't cast a wide enough net in the choice of college. And it's the very best way to get a good deal, just like shopping for anything else. If you can get your student to apply to a range of schools at a range of price tags, some of which should be those schools that really want your child as a student because your student will stand out. That's where you're going to get the most merit aid, and that's the aid that doesn't have to be repaid. And so that's just going to enable your kids to sail through less expensively. And I also think that not enough people really take the 2 year community college uh, possibility seriously enough. And taking it seriously enough means talking about it with your children from the beginning so that their expectations are managed. Then they should understand that that's your plan. And if they want to do more on their own, then it's going to be on them. And these are the ramifications on their adult life.
That's such a great point. It's about setting expectations, having those conversations early, even from the time your child is young, right?
Yeah.
Um, and getting them ready for that. And of course, you mentioned community college. And today, so many schools also offer dual enrollment, which is a great way to start getting college credits and maybe have to spend less time than in in your final institution where you're going to graduate from, which is another way of managing the cost side of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, my kids came out of high school with college credit that they got for taking courses in their high school that provided college credit, right? They were just offered in that way. And I think accessing those options, accessing AP credits for those who have, good students, making sure that those credits, because you put the work in, are actually going to count.
Right. So, since you mentioned your kids, one of the questions I had on the list to ask you about was to see if you wanted to share any information, a sort of a personal story, which I think can be very powerful. So, I don't know if both of your children went to college. I think you have two.
I
Yeah.
have two kids. They both went to college. So my personal story is that I got divorced at 40. And my husband and my ex-husband and I had taken a 15-year mortgage and basically had decided when we bought our house and had started having kids that when our kids went to college, our mortgage would be over, we would use those dollars to pay for college. And it was, we had sort of worked the numbers, it was going to be fine. But then we got divorced, and I was responsible for half of college.
Mhm.
And my kids were uh, 9 and 12. So I didn't have that many years left. And I opened 529s and I just started overfunding, basically. because I didn't want to get to those college years and not have the money there.
Mhm.
And so I used the New York College Savings Plan, worked like a dream. There was money left over. My I was able to, in the past couple of years, um, my son's wife is in graduate school, and I was just able to move his remaining $529 over to her, which hasn't paid for all of it, but has helped. Um, I'm such a fan of how these accounts just make it super easy.
That's such a great story, and it's such a wonderful example too, because people worry about having leftover money, and here you were able to use it, to help another member of your family and reduce their burden in the future. It's just great. Um, and I love that you shared that story because it's a great segue into my next question, which is, so how can parents of young children balance saving for college with other financial priorities, right? They're trying to save for retirement, they have mortgages, and how can they feel confident that they're saving enough?
My guidelines have always been, and I may be telling you something that I actually got from you, although I think I got it from Mark Kantrowitz. Um, I've always sort of you gotta max out your 401k. You've got to grab the free money, right? If there are matching dollars on the table, you want to aim to do that. And we do this because, as you've said many, many times, there's no financial aid for retirement, and there is financial aid for college. So we've got to prioritize college. But I also know, having spoken to many, many parents, that not putting money away for college as well is not an option. And
Mhm.
so I think doing two things is smart. First, don't aim to save everything if that is not the financial position that you're in. Aim to save a third. Figure figure out what your likely college solution is going to be, whether it's going to be private school, in-state college, community college. What is that likely to cost? Aim to put away a third of that before your child starts school. Figure that you'll pay a third out of current cash flow, and that the other third will come from grants and loans. So that's a mix that parents can live with. But the other important thing about the saving process is that you shouldn't be doing it alone. Grandparents want to help. Aunts and uncles, in many cases, want to help. Friends want to give your kids something for their birthdays, and they do not want to buy another toy. Um, so tell everybody you've got a 529, give them the information if they want to make a contribution. I think people are so grateful to be able to do something that's meaningful.
Yeah, and long lasting, and that your child's not going to forget in a week. And
Right.
the 529 plan, so many of them just make that really simple too.
Yep.
So that's a really great point. Um, can you offer any practical tips to help parents stay on track with saving? So over the years, let's say you are doing what you've advised and you're setting money aside, but unexpected things come up. On the other hand, you also start to make more money maybe over time. So how do you stay on track?
Right. So just like you accelerate your contributions into your 401k as you gain in income, I mean, that tends to happen because you're putting away a percentage of your salary, right? The way money flows into a 401k, and you may get automatically escalated into contributing more each year. Try to do the same, even though you have to do it yourself with your 529s. Try to bump up your contribution by, whatever the percentage of raise you got, try to bump it up each year so that you're contributing a little bit more. I also think it helps to do some sanity testing along the way. Just visit your accounts. Um, I once a month I sort of I take a spin through my brokerage accounts just to see where I am. I feel like that's a goal. it's a good amount of timing. It doesn't force me to micromanage and try to time the markets. By the same token, it does let me know where I am. And I would actually share it with your student once they get to be teenagers. I would
Mm,
let them know, I would sort of let them know how they're doing. And once they start to work in the summers, once
yeah,
they have actual summer jobs, they can contribute
yeah.
in some way. They can put money in a Roth IRA, which is great, but they could also, if they, if they want to help keep them a little bit for their education, that's a nice thing too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that there are some 529 plans that actually let you proactively set increases in the future. So
Oh,
that's
that's great.
check out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
the other thing that I was going to say is I think people should just lean in to the glide path that the 529s put you on. Um, you shouldn't be managing the money at 529 yourself.
I'm so glad you mentioned that point in particular. This year, the markets have been crazy, right? We saw
Right.
them drop precipitously in April, and now they've come back. However, during that time, I was getting a lot of questions from the media about what should parents do who are about to take money out for college. I said, well, if you're not in that position now, please check what you're in, what your 529 funds are in, because those age-based or year of enrollment funds, you won't have to worry about it if you're in that
Right.
situation, right? So I'm really glad you mentioned that. Last thing for you. Excuse me. Since we're now in July and people are going to be getting tuition bills soon and starting to send out those checks. How do you think about student loans? Do you have advice for parents and students who are considering taking out student loans for the upcoming academic year?
Um, I think student loans are a fact of life. And I think you should try to minimize borrowing as much as you can. Um, but maximize the student's borrowing eligibility first. Use those federal loans up before you dip into um, uh, dip into other loans. Um, if you're thinking about the Parent Plus loan versus the private student loan, I, I think you have to really look at the numbers and where the numbers are right now and where interest rates are. Because often with the fees, the plus loans are not the better deal. Um, and as students are thinking about where to accept admission, I think it's a disservice if you don't sit down with them and say, for this school, you're going to end up borrowing this amount of money, and this is what your monthly payment's going to be on the flip side. And if you want to rent an apartment, if you want to move out of our house, if you want to buy a car, if you want to, this is how much you are going to have to pay on a monthly basis. If you go to this school, this is how much you're going to have to pay on a monthly basis. If we look at big numbers, don't make sense to people, right? You start talking about 30,000 versus 50,000 versus 70,000, it's all the same. But
Right.
if you break it down to this is what your monthly payment's going to be, then it gets granular and people can understand it.
Yeah. Wonderful advice, Jean. Do you have anything more you want to add?
No, thank you so much for the work you do. Really, I mean, you've just been such an incredible resource.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, you too.